Welcome everyone to Overcome Podcast episode 43. Today I have here with me my friend Catherine Zidell. Catherine, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you have to be here because this podcast is about overcome and so many years into competing and a lot of surgeries that I know that you've been through.
Yes.
So you overcame a lot, and you continue showing us that it's possible to do it. So of course you gotta be here to talk about this amazing story. So let's start with. I was looking some information about the beginning, and it looks like your first show was 1996, right?
That's correct. I,
And how did you actually got into this fitness stuff? I mean, why did you wanted to compete?
I think I take everything to competition. I competed in just about everything all my life. I twirled batons, so I competed baton twirling, and I rode horses, so I competed in anything that had to do with horses through junior high, high school, college. And then I became a flight attendant. And we had, back in those days, which was in 1977, we had a weight check. So we had to be a certain weight for our height. And so I was always active, never actually working out, and I didn't then because the lifestyle in the 70s and 80s was starving yourself and and be skinny, and because we had to wear hot pants and boots. So anyway, I've always been interested in activity and looking good, and I started paying attention to nutrition. And then I always kind of like worked out, but I just wanted to change my lifestyle.
Hmm.
So I gave up drinking. I paid attention to my diet. This was probably in 1990. And I went and joined the gym and started actually weight training, not just circuit training,
Hmm.
and fell in love with it. And my next thing, like everything else I do, is I think I do competition.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yes. And I was in my late 40s, and all they had was bodybuilding. And, it was not the magnitude that it is now. But I cooked my food, I took it on my,
So you actually started competing in late 40s?
yes, my first competition, I was 41.
Wow, that's absolute. That part I didn't know. So that's amazing. So
Yes.
you already started as a master.
Yes, and that was what everybody was saying. Oh, yay, you get to be a master's already. I think they just had come out with master's division not too long before that, which was only at the time 35 and over for women and 40 and over for men.
Wow.
And I was a master's right off the bat. And not very many. And like I said, all we had was bodybuilding. They did have fitness at that point, but I'm not a gymnastic type person. And so that was not for me. But I actually liked, the bodybuilding. So I think this happens for everybody. You start, for most people, I should say, you start uh, lifting weights and you're the person doing the work. You see progress. Progress is motivation, motivating you to just go back to the gym and continue doing what you're doing and work on your looking better, feeling better, motivates you. The progress in your weights motivate you. And I think that also spurs people to seek out competition.
Right. But starting late like that for you. what was the most difficult part for you to start after 40s? It was getting the right conditioning, it was getting the right level of muscularity, or what was the hardest part for you?
Probably the degree of muscularity, because even though I fell in love with bodybuilding, I have long limbs, tall. I don't have the genetics to put on muscle easily. So I actually was very diligent about reading everything I could about supplementation, which there weren't a whole lot of supplements back then. And I think metrics had just started. I mean, that's how basic everything was. But I knew nutrition, what and hard training was going to be the only thing that was going to get me even close to being able to think about competing. And I knew I couldn't just say, okay, I want to compete and in 6 months, step on stage. I started that process, and I had a trainer, and he was a power lifter. And then his now ex-wife was a national level bodybuilder. And so I kept saying, one of these days I'll get enough muscle to step on stage. I just tried. I lifted heavy. I took my food. Back then, we didn't have refrigerators and microwaves in the hotel, and no hotel gyms. And I just made sure that I found that, and I ate the way I was supposed to. It'd take me 20 minutes to pack my bag for a 3-day trip, but 2 hours to fix my food.
Wow, wow.
And I just was motivated, just passionate. I just became so passionate about the process.
But
And
since you are a very competitive person, I understand that probably the first few competitions you might not have placed the way you wanted. What kept you so driven to keep going back and say, I'm gonna do better? You know, this resilience, is that something that you always had, or it was something that you actually developed more in bodybuilding?
well, like I said, I think I had it to some degree. I most definitely developed it more in the bodybuilding. Like I said, I competed with horses, and back in the 80s, I actually had a stallion I promoted for breeding, and I traveled all over the country and Canada showing my horse. And being that you're being judged on you and the horse against other people kind of gave me, I was already used to that format. And knowing that you just have to be the best that you can be. I mean, there's going to be that it's subjective, and and it's that judge's perception. So I already had that sports minded. Okay, this is for me. I'll do the best I can. But it was discouraging when well, I should say that the first two shows, but I was so excited just to be able to do it. It didn't matter. I was, a heavyweight just by my height alone. So, the gals that I was competing next to, and even back then, masters, I swear, is harder than open.
Oh, wow.
Well, because they've been doing it
Right,
longer.
but you were the hooky one.
Yeah. And I was always the oldest one in the class, but not that anybody ever guessed that. But I was like, oh my gosh. I think the first show I said, oh my gosh, to my friend, this is just like horse shows. Because I win, and I was excited. He goes, why are you so excited? I said, I just am. It's just like horse shows. It's just fun, and just accomplishing the goal.
Yeah, I
And
always say that because it's, of course, it's great to win, but when you finish a bodybuilding competition, regardless of the placing, the journey to get there, build a body that you wanted. So you walk out of the stage happy because that's an accomplishment. You already got there, and you already look
right,
the way you want. I mean,
right,
the placing is like is a more like a complimentary type of feeling, right? But you already feel happy just because you were able to get there.
I agree. I totally agree. I would tell my clients that it's not about, they'd say, oh, I didn't get any hardware. Well, it's not about, I mean, that's nice, but that's just icing on the
Yeah,
cake.
that
And
shouldn't be the main motive.
I was just going to say that should be the main motive. The main motive is that, and I think it's the journey that we who do this and do this for so long are addicted to
Yeah.
is the lifestyle it creates, and then the journey of just like my friends would say, so you can eat this or drink that when you're not competing. I said, but you don't understand, it's a year long process. It's an all year, every year process.
There is no finish line. It's a lifestyle.
No, no, I mean that's your mini goal, and then you once you accomplish that, you're always motivated to move on to the next one, to the next goal, and the next goal. And I think we do that in life. I mean, we should. But,
And this actually reflects on your history because I was looking to your competition history, and it's rarely to see you skipping one year. You were competing like every single year, like over and over and over. I think there
uh,
is a couple of years that there is a gap, and probably was when you had a surgery, right?
exactly. I competed every year from 1996 to 2015. I did not miss one year.
Wow.
And then I actually pushed kind of past when I got my pro card in 2014. I pushed really, really hard because I found out the year before that I really needed a hip replacement. And I said, and then I had another x-ray, and the surgeon's like, all you need is 6 weeks out of your life. I said, you don't understand. I this close. I was always so close to getting my pro card for years, first in figure and then women's physique. And I said, I can't miss a year. I'm just going to do this one show. And he's like, oh, you compete. I don't think I have any patience to do that. But I pushed through. And then once I finally got it in the January of 2015, I went ahead and took the year off. And then actually I'd been caring for my mother who had dementia and a lot of health issues. And then that year, as it turns out, I was spending a lot of time, with her and taking care of her. So it probably would not have been a good year to compete.
Hmm.
But uh, so when she passed away, I looked at Jeff Dwelly as my trainer, and I said, I don't think I can compete and make my pro debut. And he said, I only had 9 weeks. And he said, why not? And I,
And you won your pro debut. I was just looking at the video. It's amazing.
yes, I did. That was icing on the cake. And then, yeah, I got ready in 9 weeks, and I had lost some muscle from the year before, but
Yeah,
I
but
guess
you were
muscle.
super conditioned at that show.
Yes, I really try to work on that. So and getting back to your question about the age does play a factor in that, and especially as a woman and having gone through menopause and all the years I competed going through menopause, and I understand how that's gotten to be a, a big topic these days, because there are more men and women who are losing their hormones and their ability to, put on muscle or get in the condition that they need to. And hormone replacement therapy was not out there when I was going through it. But I read everything I could. I'm a big geek about nutrition and how the body works and how we process things, and what supplements, herbal natural supplements, are out there to help through those processes. But I think, and I know you know this, that no matter what, your nutrition is 90%.
Yep. Yep.
And even if your body is trying to make those changes, uh, which would not be desirable or make it more difficult to get in condition for a show, you still have to, we can't eat the same thing, expect the same
Hmm.
results as we progress, as we age. So you just have to listen to your body, find what works, and it's you go with what works. You just try and manipulate, and it does get more difficult.
Yep, yep. No, but now let's talk about that pro card because by the time that you got the pro card, you probably had what? How many years competing? Like 15, 20? 15, right? I think.
Well, 96 to 2014, 18,
18,
18.
18 years competing, and you were chasing that pro card for many, many years. When
Right.
you got that pro card, to you it was like a new beginning, or it was more like a celebration of those years? Or how, can you describe how it was?
It, I think it was a celebration of all those years. A friend affectionately called me the Susan Lucci of bodybuilding because because I did it for so long, and I would be like one place away, for so long. Because I'm not really have the genetics as a bodybuilder. Um, I did okay in bodybuilding. My second year competing, I won the Lackland out of 8 in the heavyweight, and so I was really ecstatic about that. And then I think it was in 2001, figure started,
Your
and
body
so
fits perfectly on figure, yeah.
right. So when figure came out, my trainer Jeff Dwelly said, "This is you. This is the perfect division for you."
Yeah.
And so I competed in figure, started competing at Masters Nationals. My very first Masters Nationals was 2003. I think they only had 300 and something people at that show, in the whole show,
Wow.
in three. And look at it now.
Yeah.
It's crazy, which shows the whole Masters and how it's. And then, of course, then they started but I was the first, I was the pioneer. I was there 2003. And then 2004, I actually won. They only had 3 height classes, and I was in the tall 35, and I actually won that class that year, 2004, at 49. But they didn't give pro cards.
So you actually got your pro after 50, right? After the 50 years old, right?
Yeah, yes, I was 58.
Oh wow, that's incredible. That's so
Right,
amazing.
58, and the 45 and over. In the 45 and over, I got my pro card.
Oh, so it
And
was not on the 50 and over?
no, it was 45 and over.
Wow, that's even
Yeah,
better.
at North Americans, not Masters Nationals.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so I came, and then the next year they had pro cards. 2005 they added a 45 and over, so I won that. The following year, 2005, 2006 they offered a pro card, but to the overall winner.
Do they give pro cards nowadays to the 50 and over?
Yes, they do. They do now. Yes. And I think in figure, it's just the first place. In women's physique, it's the top 2. Uh, so 2006, I actually won both the 35 and the 45, and I was in the overall for that pro card at, let's see, that was 2006. I was 51 against the 35-year-olds. So I didn't get my pro card then, but at least I was in the overall, and, for the pro card
Yeah,
in
yeah.
2006. Uh, yes. So for a few years, the pro card in figure came close at North Americans, Team Universe.
But one
Uh,
thing that I notice is that this comes through your mindset of always being grateful just for the fact that you are there. And I
right.
know that there is a little disappointment. At the end of the day, you are still happy, and I think this positive aspect that you have also helps with your longevity, right? Because if you were someone negative, every time that you lose, you would be disappointed. You probably gave up way earlier. But you always kept this right mindset, so positive, always smiling. This helps.
Yes, it's like, okay, back to the chalkboard. It's like, okay, what do I need to work on? And honestly, it's how much can you change your body to your genetic predisposition.
Hmm.
So you can work on it so much and you just go, okay, I just keep trying, and a little change here and a little change there, or maybe the way you prep, or maybe you think you're, working on your posing and your presentation and all of the stuff that goes with it besides just building muscle and dieting. I think that I learned a long time ago, which now people get it, that it's the whole package. You have to work on all of those things. It isn't just putting on muscle, dieting down, and showing up.
Hmm.
You have a total look, and you have present. It's how you present yourself. I think it plays an
Absolutely.
important
And Jeff always, because I trained with Jeff as well in the
role.
past, and yeah, I always talk about this is the entire package. Now, for you that is such a active person, taking that year off to do the hip replacement probably took a little toll on your mind, right? How did you feel having to really be like out completely without doing anything for six
So
weeks?
I I wasn't. I probably should have been. Because I really back and I did anterior approach, which was very, very new then. And of course their thought back then is just, don't do anything and let that bone heal into that. So I did my little exercises and at home that I thought, I was shown to do, and that was it. But I still tried to lift weights seated for my upper body. I was like, but I can still work my upper body, so I did.
But after
And
how many weeks post surgery?
um, let's see, probably. Yeah, you're right. I guess it was about 5 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks that I did that.
So during those 6 weeks, were you okay? You were like, no, this is fine. It's just
No,
temporary.
I was okay because I really, the surgeon said it was the worst arthritis he's ever seen. I had to be an injury. My horse fell on me going around the barrels when I was 16. Maybe I had a slight fracture back then, or, hairline fracture or whatever. But he said, I really honestly had a hard time walking. And so after the surgery, I was pain free and I could walk and I could put weight on that leg. And so I think I was so ecstatic for that first few weeks just went by so fast.
Hmm.
And then, and just making sure I was doing, I think I just was so happy, and that, I finally didn't have any pain. But I do think I have some dumbbells here. I think I did, still did some upper body stuff. I mean, not heavyweight training. Once a gym rat, always a gym rat.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't keep us out of the gym, right?
Right, right, right. And then you took the entire year off, and then you came back in 2016, and they won the pro card with 9 weeks prep. That's it, right?
Yes. No, that was my pro debut. I won. I already got. I made it through my pro card. I could barely walk, but I could get out there and quarter turn and do some poses and do my routine. And so I won my pro card, pushing past really needing the hip replacement. Then I got the hip replacement, and then it was the following year that I got ready in 9 weeks and made my pro debut.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to skip that year just because emotionally, I think more, and physically, I had been out of the gym and in and out of the hospital with my mother, and you're just mentally spent. And I said to Jeff, I don't think I can do this. He goes, why not? And I was like, okay.
And it's funny because you said that, and I was just watching the interview from the NPC where you said,
Yes,
I wasn't expecting this.
I was. I kept saying, I've lost so much muscle. I've lost so much muscle. But and that's the thing with women's physique. I think it's a little more across the board, people look the same, but still, even back in 15 and 16, they didn't want too much muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, that ended up being a good thing. So
Now, with age, Catherine, and you know that I'm 46, and I already feel this. I mean, mainly because I lost so much fat because of my 100 pounds
right,
transformation. Skin is something very difficult, right, to tighten up
right.
when mainly with age, right? Do you have any particular tip for a better skin and a more tight skin?
I think you hit it. I think the first thing would be try not to gain too much weight. And if you do gain weight, like gain muscle mass, gain weight, not too fast, and not too fast to gain. Uh, Take time to lose so that the skin does have, not stretched too
Mm-hmm.
much. Uh, Hydration. I think hydration and our nutrition and paying attention to, I don't think we can gain very much in the off season when we're older, or we will have a skin issue.
Right. So,
So,
so you nowadays, what is the difference between your weight when you are off season to prep? It's like 5, 10 pounds, maybe.
usually, usually, eight, 8 to 10. It's always been about 8 to 10. Actually, I think that's why I won my pro debut, because I was asked after prejudging how much I weigh in the off season and how much I weigh on stage, and I said 160 and 150 on stage, because the gal that was more muscular than me did have a skin issue. So that might have been the one point in either direction that pushed me to my win and my pro debut. Um, so generally, yes, generally about 8 to 10 pounds.
And that's why also you don't need like a long prep, like 16 weeks. You can get in shape like in 9 weeks, like you did.
Right, right, right. But I prefer a longer
Do
prep,
you?
you know.
Why?
Well, I think that it just creates structure, and then you don't feel like you're rushed, and it does make it like, okay, when's this going to end? But to me, it goes by fast. To me, that 9 weeks was super fast. And I was like, oh no, the stress of, oh no, am I going to make, it wasn't even the getting lean. It was I'm not going to have enough muscle. I'm kind of going through that. I'm prepping for a show now. They have all the way up to 65 in the Pro Masters, and I'm doing figure. I've been off for 3 years to talk about the skin and time off. I do notice now that I'm 66 that being off for 3 years, even though the scale didn't
Change.
move that
Mm-hmm.
much, I lost muscle and gained some fat. So then I now the getting lean process has happened fairly fast for me. So I see loose skin that I didn't see as much. And it may be because it's that many more years past 60, lack of hormone.
So you last time you competed was 3 years ago?
Yes.
But
So,
this long break, it was on purpose, or it's just what was
well,
any?
I 10 days out, it was on not on well, it was on purpose, but it was not something I would have chose to do. I had a bicycle. I've always been active, and I was riding with a group in 2003 around DFW, and someone crashed into my bike, and I went down and separated my shoulder. And then fast forward 15 years, apparently there was a lot of damage in there. And 10 days out from Masters Pro 2018, my bicep ruptured. And so I went to the surgeon. We did an MRI, and I extra large supraspinatus, infraspinatus tear, the teres, the subscapularis, they thought was torn. They're like, how are you lifting weights? Like this. I had some shoulder discomfort. I knew that there was probably a partial tear in there. I didn't know. So after I did the show anyway, I just didn't lift for 10 days. I posed, but I didn't lift. And because he couldn't see me until after it was Labor Day weekend anyway. So I had that surgery and pretty aggressive rehab. It's a sports doctor, got me back to, I really didn't even lose that much muscle mass because I rehabbed like 2 times a day, every day, and still lifted on the right side and still trained my legs. But a year later, I felt a little twinge in the top of my shoulder. He thought it was arthritis. I said, look, I've met my deductible. Let's do another MRI. He said, I probably wouldn't fix it anyway, but if you want to do that, that's okay. It's probably just a partial tear. And I was torn and retracted 3 centimeters from my arm bone.
Oh, wow.
2 of the rotator cuffs. So
Surgery again.
Surgery again. And they suggested reverse shoulder replacement because of my age at 64 at the time. So, but they said, but they looked at me and they said, but you're so active. We have this new surgery where we go in and we graft with cadaver tissue, the rotator cuff. Mm-hmm. It's called a superior capsule reconstruction. Then they bring it inside the shoulder joint, and then the graft, your tissue heals to the graft, mm-hmm. and then attached, so it becomes attached. But they said it's going to, where it was 8 months, 9 months before you lifted before, it's going to be a year.
Oh wow, that drove you crazy, probably.
It did, and honestly, Yuri, it was a really tough decision because I wasn't in pain, and they test me, how they do all the kinesia testing, mm-hmm. and I'm strong because my muscles were strong. Just because the ligaments weren't attached, but my muscles were strong. And that's kind of how they do a reverse shoulder replacement. They replace it because of arthritis. Your ligaments aren't attached anymore, but they train you to use your subscapularis and your muscles to lift your arm. And so the thought of going through a whole nother year, but I also wanted, because I wanted to still compete, at some point say, well, I'm going to do this because I would have been limited in how much I could lift with it. And I ride horses still. Mm-hmm. So I show horses still. And so I opted for that surgery. And so if you want to talk about being frustrated, I still trained my legs, but after about 3 weeks, but I had to wait 12 weeks to start therapy on my shoulder.
Wow, that probably took a toll on you because
with limited movement too, mm-hmm. and I couldn't pick up more than 10 pounds because they want that graft to heal, mm-hmm. That graft to heal. So it's been a long, and it'll be 2 years by the time I get to this show that I had that surgery.
So your next show is still this year or only next year?
Yeah, it's this year. It's actually 4 weeks. 4 weeks from yesterday in Reno. It's used to be Lou Ferrigno's Legion mm-hmm. Sport Fest. So they have an open pro show and a masters pro show. And they have age divisions. This is how popular this is getting. They have age classes in each division, and some of them go all the way up. Well, men's bodybuilding goes up to 80, and figure goes up to 65 for the masters. Women's physique only goes 55. And since I have lost muscle and I was limited to how much I could train my upper body, I opted to go back to figure because I think women's physique has evolved and become
more muscular.
More muscular. So I'm back to figure, and they have a 65 and over, and I'm 66. So I'll get to be at the bottom of my age group.
That's good. That's good.
And because they had that, and they're talking about goal setting, I guess this last time was a challenge because you're older, you get more tired, mm-hmm. and it's like, but if I didn't have that goal, I mean, not that I wouldn't go to the gym but I needed that goal to try to one more time try to get back what I know I can be, or even close to it. I mean, I could be comfortable just going to the gym and maintaining what I have, but I like once you're that kind of person that likes setting those goals and having something to work towards. It was a blessing that they had, because there was no way I was going to make masters pro again. And this time they moved it. If they'd had it maybe with North Americans like they used to, but Gary Udit moved it and had it up to July and had it with Masters Nationals this year. So then I was going to pick a 40 and over figure in Florida, but then I saw they had this show.
That's a perfect show for you to come back, right? Because
Right.
after 3 years, you're gonna be like not in a safe, I would not say safe zone, but you'll be in a more comfortable environment
Right.
with people in the similar age bracket, and give you
Exactly.
more confidence to come back. So it's a perfect, really perfect for you.
Right. And I'm trying not to be nervous, because obviously I want to be the best that I can be. But I also keep reminding myself, like we just started out talking about, that it's just a goal
Hmm.
for me, and it doesn't matter really. It doesn't matter how I place. Um, I mean, it's gravy when you do. Like, I didn't expect the pro debut win, but but oh my God, how I think that even more than actually getting my pro card. I think I was as ecstatic, if not even more. I think. Well, how many people win their pro debut? I
Right,
mean,
right. Actually, a lot of people, many people, when reach certain age, they usually get the pro card and retire because their
right,
goal was to get the pro card. Many people
right,
do not even do pro debut at all.
right. That's true. That's true.
And there is nothing wrong with that, by the way. There is nothing wrong with that. If your goal
No,
is to become a pro, get the pro card and retire and be a personal trainer or whatever, that's totally fine. I respect that too.
right, right. Yeah, so this is even more of a harder, I think, comeback, and harder comeback, mentally, physically, for many reasons. It's been a really long time to be off. I've never been off this long. And then, trying to train differently, trying to accomplish some of the way I want to look through a different way of training than I'm used to. It's just different all the way
But there is
around.
one
And then
there is one advantage if you think about it, right? Because now is the first time that you are fully fixed, hips, shoulders. So
right,
technically, you are pain free.
yes, and I want to reiterate that none of those things were due to bodybuilding. It's the first thing everybody says. Oh, well, my friends especially that don't live this lifestyle from the that I've known half more than half my life in the airline industry was they forget they've had shoulder surgeries too, because just being a flight attendant, when we used to put bags over the heads overhead all the time, can lead to shoulders. And how many people in their 60s or even 50s need shoulder surgery? But the first thing they would ask me is, was that because of your weight training? And my hip, was that because of your weight training?
And it was not both.
No, none of my injuries were due to weight training. So it's due to being active. I'm just not a couch potato. And when we aren't couch potatoes, we put ourselves at risk for accidents. So I think everybody goes through that. But I think a lot of people's I don't know if it's the excuse they look for to not go to the gym, or they just assume that if you're weight training, maybe that's a misconception that
Yeah,
people
yeah.
have. You lift super heavy and you set yourself up for
Injuries, injuries. Yeah, that's the first thing they think, right?
right, right.
How did in last year COVID change your lifestyle? Because at some point, I know we are very grateful to be here in Texas, and we will open pretty soon. But there were like 3, 4 months where gyms were closed, everything was closed, lockdowns and everything. Do you have a gym at home where you were keeping yourself active during that time?
Well, I'm very fortunate. I have some dumbbells and incline flat bench here at the house. I have a little training area upstairs in my loft, and one piece of, just a recumbent bike. But I was fortunate. My husband's business is he owns properties, and so he has he has a gym at one of his properties that's 3 floors, and he outfitted since the 80s when apartments didn't have this, and has like lots of equipment there. So it was closed to the
But
residents,
you were
but
there.
well, because we're the
Right,
owners, I've
right,
always
right,
liked
right.
having my own gym. And so, yes, I was fortunate. I was able to, but the funny thing is I didn't even use the equipment that much. I could have stayed home. So I think I did start focus because I was just rehabbing. Matter of fact, I had just started rehab when we went, like the week before we went stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they did make it essential, but I still had to do my stuff. So I ended up doing stuff. I went there, but I ended up doing stuff
Doing more
that I,
cardio, right? Probably.
right, and things that I could have done at home. And but when you're home all the time, you want to go somewhere else. So 3 days a week I went there, and then the rest of the time I was at home. And I think a lot of people did that. They just, if you had some dumbbells and bands and uh, some equipment at home, and some people have full gyms at home, so that was a blessing, I'm sure, for them. But I
Because right now that you retired from the Southwest, you are a full-time personal trainer, right? So your clients, for example, were you working with them online during that time?
well, I'm semi-retired from that as well. I just have a few, so I'm not full time, but yes, that's what we did. And a lot of them, they were happy just learning more about. It made them focus more on learning more about their nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was the psychiatrist part of the personal trainer more than I was the personal trainer
They
part.
just wanted someone to talk.
That, yes, and how am I, to let them know it's okay and just stay on your plan. I think a lot of people actually stayed on their plan better when they were because weren't so busy.
Mm-hmm.
They had time to focus on
All right.
themselves and their programs, and the weather was beautiful for the most part. Utilize cross training, things that you don't normally do because you think that you have to go to work out in the gym to accomplish your goal. And I don't have any competition people at that time. It was mostly people that just
So,
mostly women who are
want to stay in
battling.
shape, right?
Exactly. So
Now, to wrap up this, Catherine, I want you, because you are a testimony of resilience, persistency, and most importantly, you prove, not that you wanted to prove, because you did this all to you, which is the best reason ever to do to your own self. But you prove also that age is not, you shouldn't see age as a way to stop, right? So you can still establish new goals as years goes by and work towards those goals, right? So how what could you summarize some of that for some listeners that think, well, I'm 50, I'm too old for that?
I think that unfortunately most people feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
when they get to a certain age. And yes, I do. I've been asked ever since I start this. Wow, that's you didn't start till your 40s. You're my and you're still doing it. Not just that I started at 40, but that I started at 40 and I'm still doing
Yeah,
it.
that's the most impressive part. You still doing it.
Well, this 25, unfortunately, I had to skip 3 years in there in those 25 years, but this year makes 25 years. So I thought how appropriate that I'm back to doing a show on my 25th anniversary of competing. But yes, I tell them that we aren't too old. That you just, I think people feel like they're too old. What I tell them is it's probably their lifestyle that they currently have that leads them to feel that way, and that if they just changed their life to a more healthy, nutritious diet, uh, and then just start exercise, that they too could possibly go that direction, but that it's not too late.
Hmm.
And especially in this day and age, I now that they do have offer more masters
Yeah,
divisions.
no,
And
but you touched on a very good point. But I think that because today nowadays we have so many, we have a very well infrastructure with supplementation, good food. Things are more accessible,
right,
gyms, equipments to have a home. So what I
right,
see, and you probably can agree or not with that, is that people that usually have this mindset of I'm too old to do that is more a psychological issue rather than a physical problem.
I
They stick with this in their mind, and no matter what they have around them, they just think that way. And that's one of the biggest point on your career, that you never had this mindset. As I said, you were always smiling, always very positive. So attitude counts a lot.
right, and I think that, and what I also tell them is find your support group, people like you that are also wanting to go through this at a similar age, and that way they don't feel like they're thrown into a competition or trying to keep up with people who are younger, because we will have some limitations where we're not as good as we were before, and then that can be a negative.
Hmm.
Also, that can be a negative, and I think that is is happening with social media, which is probably a positive thing as far as people finding other people that are doing what they thought they might like to do, and they see somebody else. There's more and more people out there that are starting later in life just to get in shape. I'm not even saying competing,
Hmm.
and posting their success and their workout routines. And I think that's motivating for a lot of people in their 40s and 50s and 60s to say, you know what, I guess it really is. If that person can do it, that's what I always got told for years and years. Boy, if you can do this, I think I can do this
Yeah.
too. So they just didn't know. They say it's really not too late, and I'm like, I said, no, absolutely no, it's not. So I agree with you that I think it's becoming more mainstream, that more people, like you said, with supplementation, and now they have hormone replacement therapy for people who need it. So I think that's helping a lot of women, well, and
Right.
men, think about. I think I can do that. Just getting on the hormones just to feel better and have the energy.
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
That's a big thing, is having the energy, and if you don't have the energy, you're not going to have the drive
Right. Exactly.
to keep.
Exactly.
So
Well, it was a great conversation, Catherine. It's great to know that you are 4 weeks away. You look great.
thank
And I'm sure there will be another celebration on stage. Your
you.
25th anniversary, celebrating
Yeah,
the 3 years off, coming back. So, regardless of the result, you are a winner already.
Oh, thank you, Yuri. I appreciate that. So we'll see, but I'm getting excited. I'm getting nervous, but I'm getting excited.
That nervous is good. It's good. It builds the momentum.
Yes, it does. You always get nervous. I know. You know how that is. Even if you're look in the mirror and you feel like you're the best that you can be, you're still going to be a little bit
Yeah.
nervous. And it's not because nervous for yourself. You just want that to be the accomplishment that you were looking
Yeah, you just
for.
kind of want to have a good time. That's all.
Exactly. Well, this is in Reno. I guess it'll be a good time.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Thank you very much again for taking the time to record this in the middle of your prep. Good luck, and I'm looking forward to see the pictures and the entire story when it's out.
All right, Yuri. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in on Overcome Podcast, and we have much more next episode.